Issues with Tom Fallbush, Bob Scott, and Jim Waters.
All right, welcome to the show. Welcome to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, and we have my intrepid co-host, Bob Scott. We are the Bob and Tom Show, or the Tom and Bob Show. Tom and Bob, there we go. We don't get it sued by some radio group out there that has the other name. So anyway, so Bob Scott's my co-host today, and we're going to riff through a bunch of different topics today. You might think, well, it's kind of a slow news week. It's really not. Once you get below the some of the clutter, there's a lot of things happening, and so we just have a broad scope of topics to cover today. And right now, I wanted to start with this, Bob, and just kind of get your thoughts on just what the vibe is right now with the Trump administration and how things have changed since this last election cycle. There's been a lot of talk about how, of course, a lot of Democrats won in blue cities, and there may be some sort of constituency out there that is maybe disgruntled with the economy, that maybe Trump is not helping the economy as much as he claimed he would. Maybe there's some Democrats can take advantage of that. Maybe there's a weak point in the MAGA armor right now, and so that seems to be a little bit of the discussion out there. But what are your thoughts on that? And generally, just do you think that the Trump administration needs to tack right now and to try to address some of this economic issues?
Yeah, I think there's a slight degree. And I think, as you said, you were talking about what just happened in very blue states. I don't think any reasonable person that has half a brain cell can look at those elections and say, "Oh my goodness, the sky's falling," like Chicken Little would say, with regard to the results. Again, very blue, crazy states. I know we're going to probably get into a deeper discussion about New York and who actually voted in New York.
That's right.
And that's it. When you start taking a deeper dive into all of this, I think Trump's fine. I do feel he needs to be doing a little bit of a better job of selling the economy. I've noticed, egg prices and gas prices and, basic things that we use every day are going down. Mm-hmm. They're going down. And you can make whatever arguments you want about it. They are. But there's some things that do concern me with regard to the movement of interest rates. Even though they have gone down, I don't think they're where they want to be. But Trump has really not total control in that. And the price of homes, and I know the young Generation Z folks and millennials, that's something that's very near and dear to their heart. And that was something Trump really did a good job of selling to get elected this time. And really the first time he was able to pull in, for the most part, those disenfranchised men that were out there that were being sold a bill of goods they didn't want any part of. And I think Mandami in New York City is kind of going in the opposite direction, but going the same direction, but from a leftist standpoint.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah. And there's a difference, between selling the economy and actually delivering on the economy. So the question is the Trump, economic policies delivering on what he's promised? And I feel like they are, but I think it's people have said this with Trump before. With Trump, you got to let him cook. You got to kind of let his policies, start and trickle through. And so we got about a minute left for this segment. I've got a clip from the Treasury Secretary Bessent. We're going to look at some of what they're trying to do to address some of these issues right now, just to kind of change the narrative. And so, they've talked about doing some stimulus packages, maybe rolling back some tariffs and different things. So there's definitely I think, kind of a pivoting a bit in the White House. Trump has done an amazing job over this first year internationally.
Yes, I'd agree.
He is a rock star internationally. He shows up to any country and they pull out the highest honors, the biggest shows, the biggest festivals. They honor this guy, and he likes that. He's a guy, he likes to be honored, and so he's kind of drawn to that. He likes going on these trips and being celebrated. But we got some stuff at home. We got election coming up very soon. So we'll be right back with Kentucky's Voice. Is Trump moving in the right direction?
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. I'm your host today, Tom Fallbush, with my co-host Bob Scott, and we're talking Trump and all things MAGA, and also we're going to cover a lot of other topics today. We're going to get to the plane crash, Mandami. We got a lot of things. Thomas Massie, a lot of things going on with him. But we're still trying to figure out, is the administration tacked appropriately after this last election cycle to focus on domestic issues? And I feel like there's that's the discussion in conservative MAGA world. It's like, hey, okay, we're doing great internationally. We've stopped all these wars. People love us. We've got the tariffs in place, but Americans are still suffering from the Biden economy, and the inflation that's it's kicked in during the Biden era was just horrendous. I mean, 30% inflation and the bottom line is really 30% inflation. It wasn't just, the 20% that is as regular. Tell you what, let me play this clip, and Bob, I'm going to get your thoughts on this. This is Secretary Bessent, and he is discussing some things some tariffs they might want to roll back. So let's see what he's saying.
And Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says substantial tariff announcements are on the way. He specifically mentioned coffee and bananas. Here's Bessent speaking on Fox News.
The president says, I'm going to lower the rates, tariff rates on Brazil and Vietnam and other places to try to bring the price of coffee down. What else do you do?
Well, it's tough to do a lot of specific things, but I can tell you, Brian, you're going to see substantial announcements over the next couple of days in terms of things we don't grow here in the United States. Coffee being one of them, bananas, other fruits, things like that. So that will bring the prices down very quickly.
Bessent said on Fox News that the administration would cut tariffs on many things not grown in the U.S. President Trump also mentioned earlier in Fox News that tariffs would come down on coffee. The drop in banana prices would also be noticeable. CNBC reported that they have long been seen as inflation-proof, but consumers have witnessed a surprising recent rise in price. Bessent also said Americans would start feeling better about inflation in the first or second quarter of 2026. Brazil is the #1 source of coffee in the United States. President Trump and Brazilian President Lula spoke in October, and Trump mentioned then that he thinks the U.S. and Brazil will make a new trade deal.
So we'll stop
and
there.
Treasury Secretary Scott...
Stop. There we go. So we'll stop there. So, yeah, they're going to try to reduce some tariffs on some of these commodities that we don't grow in the U.S., which makes some sense. To say we want to help adjust prices. We can do that very easily by maybe adjusting down some of those tariffs that we increased recently on just specific items that are everyday consumers use. There's also talk of doing a $2,000 stimulus check to individuals that make under $100,000. So, and that's to everyone in a home, even is what everyone in a household. For example, Bob, if you have a household of 4, and it's under the household makes under $100,000, it could be potentially an $8,000 stimulus check. Now, that's been criticized as well. Stimulus checks. We did a lot of that during the COVID era, and I think that's one thing that contributed to inflation, because you start pumping money like that and putting money on the economy, and then suddenly there's demand up, and then inflation goes up. So I don't know. It's what do you think of just the tariffs, reducing some tariffs, and then the stimulus checks?
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with all that. It doesn't really get me super excited. I mean, yes, having an extra $2,000 for everybody that's under $100,000 in income is great. But you make a good point. How is that going to affect our inflation in our nation? I'm gonna do a big stretch here. I'm going to say something that Trump punted out several times when he was running for president. He wants to do something that's going to be impactful and life-changing. Let's look at getting rid of the federal income tax. That is something that has been bannered about, and it would absolutely, for sure, be the most stimulating thing as far as our economy is concerned. And certainly in my life, in my family's life, it would be enormous, if that type of thing happened. And he had intimated that more than once,
Yeah.
And maybe that is something he's hanging around his back pocket. I personally have my doubts for many reasons that's ever going to happen. But that was punted around, and that's something that I'd like to see. And I think most of our viewers or listeners would say an amen to that as well.
Yeah, I love that. I love that idea. And Bob, it seems like this is the critical 12 months for his term, and really for the Trump era, right? Because he's got 12 months before the next election cycle, which he could lose the House if things don't go well. And but right now he's got the House, he's got the Senate, and so this is still the early part of his second term. So these next 12 months have to be bold and have to be, he needs to make some big moves that really make an impact to the average everyday American. And, and he's one to make big moves, and he'll deliver on those things if he put his mind to it. So I think we've got a 12-month period here where domestically he needs to really rock this world, just the average person needs to feel it and know that it came from a Trump policy. Bessent did say earlier in another interview that he felt like first quarter of next year you're going to see this intersection of job growth because of manufacturing returning to the economy to the U.S. And so you're going to see wages really increase first, second quarter of next year. And then at the same time, the inflation rate will start dropping. And they think right about first or second quarter is going to be that sweet spot, and where people really feel it. So let's hope that's the case. But I think even beyond that, maybe the stimulus check might be a good idea to the average. Say the working class person that voted for Trump. Maybe say the African American male. Who took a chance, voted on Trump, this time around, working class guy. Maybe he could use that $2,000 stimulus check would go a long way to offset some of the inflation for the groceries. So I kind of get where he's going. Also, home ownership, this 50-year mortgage. I don't know, but same time, I've got a chart I'm going to pull up real quick, Mr. Producer, if you can show this. This is a rate of home ownership by the age of 30. This top line is 30. And back in the 1960s, we had like 65-70% home ownership by the age of 30. And then 1985, it went up to like 40. It's now down to 10%. And so it doesn't show it on this chart, but only 10% of people in their 30s now own a home at the age 30. It was 70%. Back in the 60s. It was higher than that. And in the 1950s, it was like 90%. And most people were married at that age. And so young people are struggling. That's where a lot of the Mandami, frenzy came from. Is a lot of the young folks that just felt like this economy isn't working for them, voted for them. And we can get into Mandami here in a second as well. But, home ownership, I think that's a key thing. So maybe what do you think about the 50-year mortgage? Is that crazy, or is it, or what?
Frankly, I'm not nuts about it. I guess it would make an opening, for these younger people to buy a house. But my goodness gracious, you're committing 50 years.
That's your life. Exactly right. You'll never own this thing. You'll never own
your life to that. And
that's right.
And I know the idea behind it is hopefully you'll be in a position that you will continue to increase your pay, refinance, and maybe get into a 30 or something like that.
Yeah.
But those are a lot of ifs, and candidly, that doesn't get me that excited.
Yeah.
The thought of that. And I've got two sons that are in their early 20s, and I don't think either one of them are nuts about that idea.
Well,
either.
And it seems like the one thing that if he would really just put his foot on the accelerator on, that would really affect that issue is the immigration problem. If he would just start deporting people at the numbers that we really need, right? Suddenly demand for housing would decrease. And guess what? Housing prices will drop, And listen, there's a lot of boomers listening, and I love boomers. My parents are boomers, but you guys, you've seen it. Your home equity has dramatically increased over the past 20 years, 10 years especially.
Yeah.
One reason for that is demand because of illegals. All these illegals being pumped into the economy, that's creating demand for lower income housing, which then pushes the demand up for the middle income housing and higher income housing. So all the boomers that have all this great equity in their home, the young people are looking at you like, yeah, isn't it nice? I'd love to be able to buy a house. I'll never be able to afford what you've got. And so something needs to happen. And I think deportation would be a huge issue. That would solve it would solve the inflation problem and generally on just goods and services and housing. And so why isn't Trump moving? Well, I guess ICE is doing their thing, but they're only going after the criminals. But we need 20 million people deported. What's going on?
Well, the Democrats don't want to deport them. I'll put it that way. So, and that's part of the problem too, Tom.
Yeah. Well, but Trump, he runs ICE. He runs, I don't know. I want to push the administration. They need to be moving forward on that. And who cares what they look like? I don't care about the image of what's going on. At the end of the day, Americans have gotten short change on the immigration issue, and that will solve so many issues. It solves just economically, especially, but it's just even culturally and everything else. But okay, we'll be right back. We're going to talk about Mandami and who actually voted for him in New York, and this ties into the immigration issue. We'll be right back on Kentucky's Voice.
Are you ready to stand for truth? Kentucky is at a crossroads, and we need voices that won't back down. This is your moment to rise, speak up, and be part of a movement that's changing the narrative in the Commonwealth. Kentucky's Voice is calling on bold citizen journalists, fearless editors, and those unafraid to speak truth in the public square. Volunteer, intern, contribute. Scan the QR code or visit kyvoice.org to join the fight. This is more than media. This is your moment. You are Kentucky's voice.
Now, back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, you're watching Kentucky's Voice. The great thing about Kentucky's Voice is, you hear our voice, but we want to hear your voice, right? This program is about you. It's about the grassroots. It's about conservative Americans who live here in Kentucky, and just all Americans who live in Kentucky, because, I think generally most people at their heart live in a conservative way. This whole left-wing Marxist view of the world is utopian, and you really don't live that way from day to day. Everybody lives a conservative life. And so we want to hear your perspective on any of these issues we're talking about. You can text us at 502-571-0970, 502-571-0970. And also you can support the program. We could certainly use your support. This is a listener-supported and viewer-supported program. You can text 571-0970 and you can text the word give, and you get a response back, and it'll show you how to donate and support the project. So, but Bob, we were talking about immigration and going out of the last segment, and that plays into what just happened in New York. And I want to pull up this graphic that I found the other day. We were asking, well, why did Mandami win? Why did a communist win in New York? The seat of capitalism in the world, New York City, the Wall Street. Well, if you look at this graph, this shows you how it happened. And so, Mr. Producer, if you can pull this up here, and hopefully you can. There we go. Okay. So if you look at this graph, the top line shows who voted for Mandami based on how long they've lived in the U.S. All right. So the first line, if you lived in this country less than 5 years, 83% of voters voted for Mandami. Okay. If you lived from 5 to 10 years, 76% of voters voted for Mandami. You lived here 10 years or more, but are not born here, 54% voted for Mandami. But if you were born here, born in New York City, and a Native American or a native-born American that's been around since your early days on this earth, only 34% voted for Mandami, and 45% voted for Cuomo, right? So 45%. So Cuomo would have won. So outside of all this just radical immigration we've had over the past 50 years, outside of that, we would have had more of a moderate Democrat elected. And look at that, 17% of native-born New Yorkers voted Republican. And so we're in the other categories, none of them did. So that shows you right there what's happening. We've got basically a lot of these immigrants that are coming in, especially in cities like New York, big blue cities like in New York, are voting in a sense tribally. You know, because Mandami really played to that. Say, hey, I'm your guy. I represent you. I'm kind of a part of your team, and I'm against the Americans here, and we're gonna stick it to the Americans, especially all the white Americans that live in the suburbs. He said this. This is not just me trying to spin up some racial politics here. I'm using his language. He's saying we're going to tax white neighborhoods more than others, and so he's using that as a dog whistle to all these new immigrants, which America since 1960, what was the Immigration Act in the 60s that Ted Kennedy pushed that basically turned our just turned open the valve to immigration, and so ever since that point, America's been flooded with more immigrants. I mean, I'm talking just legal immigrants, not the illegals. Legal immigrants, more than we've ever had, even during the Ellis Island period, even during the potato famine in the 19th century. We've had more. I think right now, it's 1 out of every 4 people in this country are foreign born, and so a lot of these people are sure fine people on some level, but you cannot dilute the culture and the political culture and the political dynamic of a country that much, and not have some disruption and some lack of assimilation, and you end up getting a communist elected in your largest city in the country. And so Bob, I mean, it's pretty clear what's happening here. This is it's the foreigners basically voting in a communist and voting in their guy, and juxtaposed against the will and wishes of people that are native born.
Yeah, that was the Hart-Celler Act, I believe, of 1965 that you're referring to.
Yeah.
And that's
legal immigrants, because only legal immigrants can vote here, right? So it's only I'm talking the legal, not the illegals. Illegals couldn't vote, hopefully, but they still do when they.
I think it goes a lot deeper than that, though, Tom. If you look at the radical Muslims, in particular the Muslim Brotherhood,
right? They
absolutely 100% have an agenda, that's well known.
Yeah.
In fact, probably going to talk about it a little bit more on my show tomorrow, our show tomorrow.
Yeah.
But it's an agenda. It's happening. It's being executed, and maybe not so much a slip of the tongue to use the word executed, but that's really what is happening, what's coming down, and that's. I believe what you see, the results of New York reflect that to a great extent. I mean, there's other extenuating circumstances besides the fact that Cuomo was an absolutely horrific mayor and certainly completely abused New York City during the pandemic.
Yeah, right. Sure.
So
even outside of that, I wonder if he was a great candidate, if he still would have won based on this dynamic. I mean, the way Mandami ran, and the fact that so many people that are native born in New York left New York. I think there was somebody quoted the other day. It was like 700,000 Jewish Americans have left New York since either since 9/11 or since COVID, one or the other. But you would think, well, why? Because New York's known as.
The thing I don't understand, Tom, I really scratch my head to this.
Yeah.
You saw a lot of the Jewish people in New York that supported and voted for Mandami.
A lot of younger folks too. A lot of younger folks.
And I think it was for sure that the younger ones, but and probably quite a few of the older ones as well. That run liberal.
Right.
Voted for him, and it's sort of like you're handing over power, the keys to the kingdom, to somebody that basically wants to take you out.
Yeah,
right.
That's right. And the question is he really a radical Muslim? I mean, he was hanging out at the gay bar the night before the election, but at the end of the day, he wore that Muslim identity on his sleeve, and he's definitely associated with a lot of groups, at least politically, that are radical and try to get their support. And so, the whole Muslim issue, the immigration. So, bottom line, we've had too much immigration, both legal and illegal, and it's just disruptive to our culture, disruptive to our society, and eventually every city, Louisville, Lexington, any major city is going to look like New York in the coming years, because all the immigrants that come in, they generally go to the larger metropolitan areas because that's where housing is less expensive, and they basically create enclaves, and they push out native-born Americans to the fringes, to the suburbs, to the exurbs, and so you end up getting these urban areas that are full of foreign-born people that have a different worldview, different agenda. They're not part of our culture. They don't have a chance to assimilate to our culture because all the Americans are leaving their neighborhoods.
all that we need to do is look no further than Europe.
Yeah, that's right.
Just look and see how Europe, specifically Great Britain in particular, is being decimated right now because of primarily Islamic immigrants that have come in and absolutely, and what they do, part of the plan is to seize power through the ballot box, counting on a lot of regular, voters not going out and voting. They organize their constituents to go out and vote. They get power. And then once they start getting a power, and we've seen it not just over in Great Britain, go to Dearborn, Michigan, too.
That's right.
I'm sure people have seen the clips that have come out of there where the mayor
and the police
had
chief,
the audacity to threaten a member of the community who came and called him out in a nice way. He was very nice and very, very professional in the way he called him out, but, just didn't want to see a city street named after a guy who was a known supporter of a terrorist organization.
Yeah, exactly. So, and what does that look like even here locally, right? And I hate to even go here, but I'll mention, if you drive up and down Butchell, along, right where the Costco is in that area, about every other business has an Arabic sign now. And so it's like Butchell is becoming this little Arabia down there, and which is, listen, there's a lot of nice Muslim folks. There's, you got to say that, but the culture of Islam. There is always a radical minority that wants to not assimilate, and they encourage everyone in that community to not assimilate. And there's always a problem with Muslim immigration in any communities, any country they move into, of a lack of assimilation because their ideology and their religion demands that they not do that. And so I'm sorry, it's just problematic just to have high levels of Muslim immigration and just immigration in general. So we got to roll it back everywhere. And so we'll see. We'll be right back after this break.
Back to Kentucky's Voice Radio, online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice. We want to hear your opinion on the issues we just talked about earlier. Is the Trump administration, do they need to pivot? Do they need to pivot to domestic issues now and focus more on that and make sure people understand the economy is moving in the right direction? Also, just immigration. Are you concerned about how it's going to impact your city, your areas? Now one thing, Bob, we've got an advantage here in Louisville is we do have a immigrant population of Cuban Americans or Cubans. Maybe not a lot of them may not be Americans yet, but we have Cubans here, which we are very fortunate to have Cuban immigrants here, as opposed to a bunch of folks from Syria or something. Because Cubans get it, a lot of Venezuelans get it. They're like, we've seen this communism crap. We're not dealing with that. And so I've told this story before.
It's funny. They tend to be more conservative than most Americans.
Exactly right. Yeah, I've had some friends
because they have seen it.
Exactly. I had some friends come to me during the Breonna Taylor riots and all this, and they said, "Mr. Tom, what is going on? This is just like it was in Cuba. This is the same stuff I heard in Cuba. What is going on with your people?" They were just so heartbroken. So they thought they came to America where they can get away from all this communist crap. And here we got communists marching in the street in Louisville. So anyway, we're fortunate to have some Cubans here. So when I say we need to roll back immigration, we do. We just do, and generally. But thank God we do have some immigrants here in this community that are highly mixed with Cubans.
There's a lot of Hispanic folks that I'm friends with that
that's right.
are very conservative too.
That's right.
So I don't want to paint, and I know you're not, but paint with a broad brush.
Yeah.
But there is reason for concern.
There is, yeah. And also just what is an American? I mean, just because you come in and you signed up to be an American here with there's a question of loyalty and heritage, and a lot of questions now that are being raised about just what is an American? What just because we have a bunch of American citizens voting, are these people really loyal to our cause? Do they really care about the heritage of our families and our histories? That my family on both sides fought in all the major world wars and Vietnam and everything else. Do they even care about that? So when you have too high levels of immigration, you can really create almost like a tribal, balkanized society, and it's just dangerous. And so we just got to roll that back. And I tell you what, I want to shift gears real quick. I want to talk about Thomas Massie, and I want to get everybody's opinion out there about Thomas Massie, because this is I'm not doing a good segue here, but I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, Thomas Massie. he is running, of course, trying to in a primary as Ed Galbraith going after him. Trump is backing Ed Galbraith, trying to unseat him. Massie has been in the news the past couple days with one. He put a petition in to led by Thomas Massie to get enough signatures to release the Epstein files, and so he's pushing that. Trump's pushing against it, and so that's interesting. A lot of Republicans are rallying around Massie, so that's an interesting topic. Also, Massie is voted against the ending of this government shutdown, and so that's him and only one other Republican voted against that. So now he's going to say traditionally, the reason I did this, it's more of a protest vote. I just don't like government spending. It's not like I didn't want to end the shutdown. I just want to make a protest vote to know that we're still spending too much and da 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 da. So I don't know. I can kind of go either way on Massie. I kind of get his fight. I get his libertarian leanings, but be a constant foil to the Trump administration during this existential struggle that the country's in, I just kind of wonder if it's wise. So, well, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I'll say right up front, I like Massie, and I have voted for him and supported him. I do feel, and I'll say this too, there has been some votes that he's had that I've disagreed with as well. But that being said, I think we're very blessed to have him as a congressman, as well as our Senator Rand Paul. They bring a different perspective. I don't think it's good in a free republic to have just one voice or one thought that's being spoken. I think it's good to have a balance and a counterbalance, going on. And I do think, and again, I'll say right up front, there's been many times I haven't agreed with both of those guys. But overall, I like Massie. I will vote for him again. And I'll say that proudly in the next election. I disagree vehemently with President Trump.
Yeah, you're in his district. Yeah, you're in his district, right?
I'm in his district, and I plan on voting for him again.
Yeah.
But that being said, there's just a lot at play here that people aren't seeing, that's happening behind the scenes. And, you mentioned the things that's going on right now. I know Marjorie Taylor Greene and others, both Democrats and Republicans, are wanting the Epstein list released. Trump absolutely is blocking that. You can put whatever spin on it you want, but he is blocking that. Yeah. And but it's interesting. Now, let me say this. They tried to bring it up for a vote. Okay, Tim Burch. I don't know if you're familiar with him. I am. I like him. He's a congressman from down in Tennessee. Yep. Very plain spoken, much like John Kennedy down in Louisiana, senator from there. Yeah. He came out and he was frustrated. He'll say, this place just gets to me. It frustrates me sometimes. And he came out and he was in favor of that Epstein list information being released. And they just came out from a vote apparently yesterday. Guess who blocked? I'll give you one guess. Who blocked that from going forward?
I think I know, but you go ahead and tell me. Democrats.
The Democrats.
Right? Democrats. Okay.
The Democrats.
Right. Okay.
Stopped it in the House.
Right.
Despite their upfront pandering and being critical about Trump not releasing it. When the rubber met the road, they stopped it and they shut it down. Yeah. And by the way, they had 4 years with Joe Biden to release that information, and guess what? They didn't do it.
They didn't do it. Right. Yeah. Well, okay. I'll say this to your comments. I agree. We need a big tent, right? We need a lot of voices in the Republican conservative world and the MAGA world. And that's really one of the strengths we have in the MAGA coalition is it is a broader tent than it was when it was just a traditional, Reagan era Republican Party. And so, and that's one reason we've won. At the same time, we do have to get things done. We have to get agendas executed. And so there's a point where people need to, coalesce and move forward on issues. So I'm torn on that topic. And I like I said, I respect Rand Paul, I respect Thomas Massie and the libertarian perspective. We need that perspective in the party. And at the same time, I just don't want them to be a foil to prevent major change from happening. So anyway, but and back on the Epstein thing, I think everybody's pretty, clear and understanding that the Epstein issue revolves a lot around how Epstein was basically an agent for Israel. He was basically a covert operation.
You don't want to say that. That's going to offend.
That's right.
On the far right,
and listen, I'm very pro-Israel. I'm very pro. I'm pro what they're doing, and I'm someone that is not Israel skeptic. But at the same time, that's probably what was going on there, and that could be why Trump is protecting or preventing the Epstein files from coming out to some. But who knows? Maybe I heard also he might be protecting some of his donors that maybe were caught up in the Epstein thing. Who knows?
I'd say there's more. Yeah, no, listen. Yeah. My friend, I'd say there's more than a good chance that's at the heart of it, and and there's other even deeper conspiracy theories, and we know conspiracy theories a lot of times become fact that are out there as well. That people that might be very close to him, right? That he's protecting. So I just know it's something that he campaigned on. That he was going to get it out. We know. That the attorney general, the FBI director all said that, hey, we're going to get it out. And the attorney general even had a file on her desk. This is all the information we got, and we're going to be releasing. And all of a sudden it went quiet. That's right. There was no more information to be released. And what really bothered me the most, as far as what President Trump did in that, it was he tried to downplay it and say it was not significant, and
that people that are obsessed with this need to move on and they're not really balanced or whatever. But I exactly right. So I think there needs to be some reckoning there and in a serious way. And also if it comes out that Israel was behind all this, that's fine. We can all still be very pro-Israel, pro the existence of Israel and supporting their efforts in Gaza, but criticize that particular operation. I understand even our allies spy on us. I get that, but when we catch them, we should still slap their hands. And so that you shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be trying to take our citizens and get them caught up in some sex ring, and especially our young women. And so that needs to be shut down. However, we got about a minute and a half left here. This whole conversation on the right about Israel, going after Israel, and the young people that are really spun up against Israel right now. I'm very concerned about that, because I do think that, the cause of Israel is a noble cause. It's a just cause. I don't think we should be Israel first. We should be American first. But this whole anti-Israel, anti-Semitic sort of vibe that we're getting from a lot of those in the Twitter sphere, people such as Nick Fuentes, and I'm not going to lump in Tucker, and because I don't think Tucker's anti-Semitic. He's just critiquing Israel. And so that's, of course, anybody who does that is labeled that way. But there is some anti-Semites there. Nick Fuentes has this whole, the Jewish conspiracy stuff going on. That's stuff the tropes that you've been hearing for the past 100 years, and which is just not true. That's just not that. Because look at some of the strongest conservatives in our movement that are the strongest. Stephen Miller, like the strongest MAGA guy in the White House. He's a Jewish American, and so that's right. I'd follow that guy to the end of the earth. He's just, what I'm saying. So there's just not this conspiracy out there. But I get the whole, I get that whole issue is very complex. At the end of the day, this anti-Semitic thing, we need to tamp it down, and also Israel needs to be critiqued fairly. But they need to finish their job in Gaza. What they did in Gaza was noble. If we were attacked, we would have done the same thing. Matter of fact, we did the same thing in Afghanistan. We did the exact same thing. So it's anyway. So we'll be right back after this. We're going to talk a little bit about the plane crash too. Some latest that's come out from there, and love to hear your thoughts. 571-097.
Kentucky's Voice is your home for real news, real people, and real answers. But we can't do it without you. Your financial support helps us bring truth to the forefront, hold leaders accountable, and give a voice to the people of the Commonwealth. Join the fight today. Give online at kyvoice.org or text KYVoice to 53555. Every gift makes a difference. Stand with us. Speak up. Stay strong. You are Kentucky's voice.
Radio online at kyvoice.org.
All right, welcome back to Kentucky's Voice, and I got my host today, Bob Scott. We're riffing through several issues, but just trying to get the lay of the land right now on all things MAGA and how it impacts our area locally here in Kentucky. But I want to tell you about an event that's happening Monday night that is pretty exciting. You know, of course, we're big fans of Charlie Kirk, and God rest his soul, and just Turning Point USA. There is a local church here called Evangel World Prayer Center. They have become a hub for Turning Point USA. They actually have a Turning Point Faith chapter that they just launched here in Louisville at Evangel. But really anyone can come. It's just, you know, and there's only two of these in the state. There's one in Northern Kentucky and one here in Louisville at Evangel. And they have their first event here on Monday. Mr. Producer, if you can put this up on the screen. It's Turning Point USA Faith. There's going to be a meeting, the first inaugural meeting here Monday night, 7 o'clock, Evangel World Prayer Center, which is at the Gene Snyder and Billtown Road. You can't miss it. It's right there on the exit. And 7 o'clock, and they're going to just talk about how Turning Point is going to start engaging here locally with faith communities. And so come on out. If you're a young person, old person, doesn't matter if you're part of a faith group or you're not, doesn't matter. Come out and get involved. Turning Point is one of the great organizations that's actually making a difference on all levels, and it's probably the strongest conservative activist group in the country, and to have a chapter here in Louisville and that anyone can be involved in is just tremendous. Usually there's just campus chapters, so there's a lot of young people. The Turning Point Faith is for anybody, and so it's they're going to be having some events. They probably are going to be sponsoring a debate we're going to have, hopefully with the Senate primary candidates here in May, and they may be the sponsor of that as well. So anyway, make sure you want to know about that. Also, Bob, I want to back on the immigration issue and just Massie and all this. I wanted to bring up this idea. We had T.J. Roberts on the show a while back, Representative T.J. Roberts. Yep. He brought up an issue that I want to just remind people that is still out there, that's unresolved, that we need to get our legislature to get cracking on, and that's redistricting, mid-decade redistricting. And I want to pull up this map, Mr. Producer. There is a plan that someone has drawn out to redistrict the state of Kentucky so that we could get rid of that last Democrat seat in Louisville, right? And so right now we have a congressional delegation of 6. I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 5 of the 6 are Republican, 1 is Democrat. Well, with Proposition 50 out in California, they've gerrymandered their state now to just basically eliminate Republican seats. You know, every Democrat state across the country for decades have had their systems gerrymandered where there's very few Republican seats, and if at all. And plus all the illegals that are being counted in the census help give seats in California and Texas and places that are, I guess California and New York and Chicago, give them extra seats just because there's illegals in their district, because they count them towards the census. And so we got to fight back as Republicans and as conservatives and as Kentucky. Kentucky needs to fight back, and we need to get ourselves redistrict here and get rid of that seat. And there's a way to do it. And so, and I don't see any movement in our legislature talking about this. And I actually called my rep. I've actually talked to John Hodgson. We love John. He said, hey, there's just not a lot of buzz about it right now. And so, but and my rep is like, well, if I hear anything, I'll let you know. Nobody's talking about it. It needs to be this is a way where because here the Democrats just picked up 5 seats in California. We only have like a 3 or 4 seat majority in the Congress. And so if we don't start fighting back and doing something like this,
they're absolutely correct. They're gerrymandering the Electoral College. In essence, that's what they're doing. And again, you were absolutely correct when you said this is something that they've been doing for a very, very long time in the states, the very blue states, to where you see Massachusetts in particular. There's not one Republican representative there in the legislature that I'm aware of.
That's right.
And I believe someone said that they're about 40% Republican
That's
there.
right.
Now,
That's right.
you tell me how that's fair and balanced. It's
right.
not.
That's not
you know, and it's truthfully, every fiber deep within me does not like that. I don't. I think it's a good thing to have a representative republic in our country. However, a big however, if we don't play the game and
we lose.
Go along, this is all about power and control.
That's right.
That's all the Democrats care. They don't give a
They don't care. Yeah, the Democrats play smash mouth. They understand power politics. They play smash mouth. Republicans, we played by the Marcus of Queensberry rules for the past 50 years, and we've got our butts kicked every time. You know, the era of the Mitt Romney party is over, right? And so we need to get in gear in our legislature in this state needs to get in gear and do this. This is a very simple thing to do, and I'll pull this map up again if you can show it, Mr. Producer. There's basically you take Louisville and you dissect it into 3 different districts, and so you basically dilute the strong Democrat majority in the urban area, and you break it up into these other districts, and then suddenly you can have all Republican districts in the state. And so call your representative, call your state senator. I've done it, and I encourage you to do it. Let's get this moving. I mean, there's no reason this can't happen. Other states are doing it. Texas is doing it. There's other states discussing it. Kentucky, we're a red state. We should go ahead and make that. We got a majority in the House and the Senate in the state, and so let's get that done. So I want to move on to another topic here. I want to just mention the plane crash. We got about 6 minutes left, but there's some audio that came out from the first responders just the traffic, the radio traffic after this happened. I just wanted to play it. It's really fascinating, and you got to really be proud of our first responders in this city, specifically Okolona. And so I'm going to play this and see if you can. Let's see, Mr. Producer, if you can get this audio going. It is not playing, is it? Okay, audio. Okay, and play.
Arsenate.
Be advised, there's been a large explosion off Fern Valley Road by the airport. Lots of black smoke.
Battalion 3, Engine 1, responding +1 to Fern Valley Road and Grade Lane. That's Fern Valley Road and Grade Lane. Said there was a huge explosion, believed to be a plane crash, huge fire and smoke. Arsenate is responding as well with 1716. Correction, Arsenate is on the scene advising 1716.
Arsenate radio.
Arsenate.
Be advised, UPS employees are stating that they believe that this is one of their airplanes that went down.
Radio's okay, sir. We're hitting the box now, starting additional box from LFR as well as the box from County Fire is all en route.
Truck 8, Quint 9, Engine 18, Engine 16, Engine 15, Engine 10, responding for a mutual aid response to Fern Valley Road and Grade Lane. That's Fern Valley Road and Grade Lane for a suspected plane crash outside the UPS entrance at 1723.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And hats off to Okolona Fire. Again, they were the first ones that showed up, and they took the lead on putting out the fire. And I think they just released. Oops, let me kill that audio. But they just released all the victims' names yesterday as well. And so and so our hearts go out
14
to
total. Yeah. 14 total. And it's just absolutely devastating. I do thank God it could have been way worse than it was, and it's horrific. You know, nobody can say that it wasn't. But you know, I do thank God that there wasn't a deeper loss of life. You know that happened, and I tell you, Tom, as I was listening to those first responders, you know, doing the radio callbacks, it absolutely was very moving to me. You know that these are the men and women that are running into the fray, you know, and they do it consistently. This isn't anything new. Well, others, you know, and probably rightfully so, are running away. They're the ones running towards, you know.
Exactly right.
So we have to tip our hats to each and every single first responder, whether you're a fireman or you're a police officer or medic, it doesn't matter. We love and appreciate you and thank you. And the other thing, just some of the sites I'm sure they saw, that's not something that you're going to easily forget. You're probably never going to forget it, and I've heard some stories I won't even share right now.
We have a statement from the Oklahoma fire chief on the crash. Let me play that real quick, Mr. Producer. So,
when you first saw the smoke was different. It was heavier. It was darker, black smoke. Pulling up on scene, you first see a big orange ball of fire mixed with black smoke. At no point could we tell that there was an actual aircraft there.
Yeah, it's just, anyway, just hats off to Chief Little there and Oklahoma. Our facilities are in Oklahoma. Our studio is literally about a mile away from the crash, and so we saw it. It was really it impacted our area, and so anyway, just hats off to our first responders, and God bless the families that are still dealing with this, and I think our city really came together great that day, and you got to be proud of really everyone. I don't think there's any outside of just maybe some maintenance issues. Maybe there's only place to blame here, but outside of that, everybody really did their job here, and we can be proud of that. But anyway, I just wanted to share that audio today. And so, any last thoughts on that, Bob?
Yeah, no. Thank God for each and every one of them. I know that our city is better off, and it wasn't just the local. I heard that. There were a lot of outside Louisville first responders.
From Lexington.
That engaged. I mean, this was a major deal. And, they were running into, they didn't know what, from a toxic standpoint, you forget about that, the danger of the flames, but also the plume of the dark smoke and, what that was filled with. Again, God bless them. And I pray that nothing serious health-wise happened to them.
Right. So, well, we got about a minute left. I wanted to mention this story too. Mitch McConnell voted against some hemp regulations in the state, and we only have a minute left. But that was kind of interesting. He was concerned about high levels of THC and hemp being grown in the state, but it's really kind of shut down the hemp industry in a lot of ways. And Rand Paul's really criticized him on it. So it's McConnell's got some criticism right now on doing that. I kind of get that. You don't want to promote marijuana usage and all these products that have high levels of THC that are being sold now to our kids. But at the same time, we have a hemp industry in the state. We need to support it. So interesting story you should definitely follow. But listen, thanks for joining us today. We covered a lot of topics today. We'll be back tomorrow on the Tom and Bob Show on Kentucky's Voice. And appreciate you watching and appreciate your support. We'll talk to you tomorrow.